So airlines create the subnet, they can create their token, and they get to create as many XRC20 tokens to give to their customers. Today we're talking about how airlines make billions from points, how 25 billion was borrowed against these points, just like crypto, how XLM, XRP, and XDC fit in this new financial system with airlines, why airline points will be crypto soon. Your points can be created as an XRC20 token, and then they can be used as collateral. Stay tuned. Airlines don't make their money from flying. They make their money from issuing points, and points is money. The most profitable part of the airline industry is the frequent flyer program, which is points. And why would they want to issue points? So they can borrow against it. And as we know in this channel, if you can create debt, you can create money. So let me explain this. They create about they're about 2 to 14% from flying, but they can sell you these miles and their profit margin is around 39 to 53%. On hand, Delta has about 26 billion points that they issued. United Airlines, 22 billion. American Airlines, 18 to 30 billion. And why is this important? Well, airlines get the cash immediately. They can create the points out of nothing. They can sell those points to the banks for collateral. And then the banks get to create a credit card, and that attracts new customers, which creates debt, which creates money. They then can get the points, and most of those points sit unredeemed. Just like my last video of how Venmo, they make their money off of the float. So a lot of those points sit in your account, and then they're generating income for you. And you're going, Joshua, points aren't money. Points are money. And that's just the reality of it. So frequent flyer programs, the most profitable part of the airline industry. CNN. American Air borrowing $7.5 billion in loyalty-backed debt. U.S. airlines use loyalty programs as debt collateral. Those are 3 sources that I just proved my point. Joshua, what does this mean for me? I think the blockchain is the next step for these airline companies. It makes perfect sense to me and how they can issue a XDC subnet and put all of their aircraft parts, their points, issue XDC, and then use XRP and XLM as collateral. Let me explain. So aircrafts are essentially assets that is on the balance sheet. Those assets have to be tracked. And so what I think might happen, and this is a theory, is they can take these assets and put it on the blockchain and borrow against it. And as we know, there's nothing new under the sun. We're going from the old financial system to the new financial system, and I'm going to show you. So let's say we have this Boeing 787 worth this much. We can tokenize it and then borrow against it. I personally think that XDC is best positioned for this because you can create subnets, and I talked about this in my past video. Joshua, show me the proof. Well, there's other people who are doing this right now. So they're taking the blockchain. They are creating digital records for aircraft parts, and they're going over basically the entire life cycle of one aircraft. And that is something that I think XDC could be best positioned for, because no one wants to create their own layer 1 blockchain. That's a pain in the butt. But they can use XDC, create their own subnet, tap into some bank relay that I talked about, and borrow against it. So Joshua, what does this mean for XRP, XLM, and XDC? Well, this is a lot of money. So this is just one industry that I think can be tapped in. XRP, in my opinion, is a settlement vehicle. It is a settlement vehicle, and XLM is also a settlement vehicle. XDC, same thing. There's also many other settlement vehicles, but the only difference between those is they're ISO compliant. So if an aircraft fleet worth 50 billion, you also have your points that are now on chain. You have your quote unquote some blockchain that you can borrow against. Your total collateral for that one airline is now 81 billion, and you can borrow against it, and then borrow against it and reinvest it, and you make X amount. That's really important for the airlines because that's profit. So I also think that's going to pretty much put buying pressure on XRP, XLM, XDC, because you're going to want those assets up so they can borrow against it. That's also part of that theory of, the crazy amounts that XRP people are saying. But it's really to borrow against it. If a bank is going to be borrowing against it and a big corporation, they're going to want that price to be stable, especially at a high price, because the higher the price, the more that they can borrow, and they're not going to want that fluctuation. And so personally, I think that $2 is more is that $2 price point right now is good because you're not seeing that crazy fluctuation. So I'm going to walk you through why I think XDC might be used for point creation and why I think this is going to be a good thing for investors because they're going to want the transparency involved from the blockchain. So they can create points through the XDC subnet and they're connected to the main relay that might be owned by the banks. And I actually have XDC validator that I actually created where I tracked all of the XDC validators from the Know Your Customers, at least the ones that I could find. There's some that I couldn't, but let me explain this some more. So XDC subnets for airline points. Why I think this might be important. Points are tracked locally through a centralized database, not on the blockchain. XRC20, which is essentially a fancy ERC20 token. XDC is hybrid. You got real-time settlements, just like XRP. And like I said, XRP, XLM, they're going to be a store of value. I think XDC is going to be kind of the functioning layer. You also got the collateral on chain, so you can put your airline parts, your airlines, whatever it may be, and then everyone can see it. So it's going to be a private subnet that everyone can see. And so this is a graphic that I put together, kind of like what I think might happen, but it makes sense to me. So airlines create the subnet, they can create their token, and they get to create as many XRC20 tokens to give to their customers. They can also then sell that to the banks. And a bank would love that because that's money that they can borrow against. They can also use AMMs, like in my last video of how I showed you how you can use XRP to basically make the percentage off of the liquidity pair. I can see the liquidity pair being through airlines, like some type of Delta to American Airlines, AMM on chain. That makes sense to me. And then you can also borrow against that. And I showed you in my last video with the Everything app from Elon, how I think they can basically make that yield of like 6 to 8%. So now I'm just going to talk to you because I don't know where this is going, but that's kind of where I see it in my mind. I can see them putting aircraft parts on the chain, your title, or even just the aircraft itself on a private subnet that the banks connect to. The relay could be owned by the bank, and then everyone gets to be part of the public blockchain. You need XDC to basically transact on here, and that's going to push up the price. There's the more people that use the network, the higher the price. And you saw that with the NFT craze. The more people that were part of the network, the more that Ethereum went up, the more that a Solana went up, etc. Mantra partners with Novus Aviation Capital to pioneer tokenization in aviation financing. And the name of the game would be to borrow against it. That's really all that means. To finance planes and to create money and to create liquidity for the airlines. I really don't know where this industry is going, but I definitely can see a world where they put that on the blockchain to create money. I like the XRP price point of some crazy number. I don't think that's realistic short term, but I do think as we go from this old financial system to the new financial system, you're going to see a slow transition of kind of how we're already seeing it. And then you'll see these crazy, in my opinion, crazy spikes, but I think it's going to plateau. Okay, so airlines are making money from points. I think that they might be heading in a direction to create points on the blockchain. I also think that they might be using some type of XDC or some type of blockchain to track airlines and airline parts as collateral for real-world assets. So these videos are very conceptual, but I love talking about this stuff. And is there a blockchain that I missed? Are we moving in a different direction? I also want to do videos on points with different systems, different industries. So I'm going to be doing more videos on that. I'm an engineer who just loves business, and I do tech consulting. So I work with a lot of businesses and churches just to walk them through their system. I'm not a financial advisor. I just love talking about this, and I'll see you in my next video.